Welcome to The Happy Nurse, the podcast that encourages nurses to offer themselves the same compassion that they so freely give to others. I am Elaina, a registered nurse on a mission to reduce burnout in nursing. Let's jump in. Hi everyone, it's me, Elaina, the Happy Nurse. I'm back again for another episode, and today I am joined by Michelle DeRoubaix. Michelle and I have known each other for years, actually, and we met back in probably 2019, I think. And Michelle was one of my early guests on the pod, and she's come back today to talk about leadership in nursing. So her background is she is a nurse educator, a leadership coach and mentor, and she has over 40 years in clinical nursing and over 20 years guiding and developing the next generation of nurse leaders. She is the author of the leadership ebook, From Self-Doubt to Confident Leader, where she shares practical strengths-based strategies to help nurses lead themselves first, inspire their teams, and build thriving workplace cultures. Michelle is passionate about empowering nurses to give and receive feedback with confidence, navigate change without burning out, and cultivate resilience in the midst of a demanding healthcare environment. Welcome back to the pod, Michelle. It's so lovely to have you on again.
Thank you, Elaina. It's great to be here. Yeah, fantastic. Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure. It's always nice to have guests back on again and feels like a full circle
Mm,
moment. And you've been off doing great
it
things
does.
in the leadership world.
Yeah, well, I guess that being a more experienced nurse and being in nursing for 4 decades, I've had a lot of leadership roles over that time. And I've noticed quite a change in healthcare leadership, probably since COVID-19, particularly because what happened, of course, and 10,000 nurses left the healthcare system. They're very experienced nurses in Australia, and we don't sort of have that as a backup as much anymore. And what happened with also the pressures on healthcare is that nurses have taken up leadership roles way too early than we used to. Like in my day when I, go back into the dark ages when I trained in hospitals, we would have to have at least 10 years experience before we were given a leadership role. But the research shows now it can be as little as 2.5 years that nurses clinically are given a leadership role as an associate NUM, and even nursing unit managers are very young. And look, they're fantastic and they're doing a great job, but I can see that they're very stressed, that they don't always have the skills that they really need. And I think they're suffering. It's not their fault because a lot of it is the healthcare pressures. They need people in those roles and they want them to step up. And of course, they want to do a good job in their career. And it's hard for them, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I'm hospital trained too. I trained in
Yeah.
the 90s, and when I qualified, I would never have dreamt that I would end up in a leadership position within 2.5 years. I
Yeah.
remember getting my level 2 after about 4 years of experience and thinking that was an achievement at the time. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
can't imagine the pressure that these, quite freshly qualified nurses are feeling in these roles.
Mm. Yeah, I
So
think I don't have the stats on it, but I do think they're burning out quicker.
that's
Yeah.
understandable.
So oh, yeah. Yeah. And just because I work casually still, around all the education I do, they'll often ask me questions, or they'll say, "Oh, you have to do this." And I say to them, "Well, you'll have to go back to the after hours manager and ask them for more staff." And they say to me, "Michelle, they don't listen to us." So they're left, holding the baby basically, and
Mm,
feeling that they're not heard in their role, a very responsible role where they're looking after their patients and the safety of their patients and staff. And they just don't feel like they can go anywhere. Their negotiation skills aren't there. And I feel really sad that the system's got to that extent. Mm.
yeah, that's concerning.
I think the politics is big in nursing, isn't it? And we
Yeah,
need to be able
politics.
to navigate.
Yeah, definitely. And the skills to do that are not something that you're equipped with in nursing school, that's for sure.
Absolutely not. Yeah,
So, what inspired you to
yeah.
focus on leadership coaching for nurses? And why do you believe leadership development is so critical in healthcare today?
Well, I guess because I saw a gap there, and as a coach and a mentor, I wanted to find a niche that really, I could support, because I really don't want to support upper management. I think they get enough training. I think they get enough education. There seems to be a lack of education for the associate nums and the nums at times. And I wanted to be able to support a group of nurses that I feel I could support, because look, over the years I've done so much study myself, trial and error. I've been an after hours manager and a manager of a unit as well. I've learnt a lot in that time, and I just feel I can share my skills with them, because it's much quicker if someone can share their skills with you than you have to wade through the trial and error and the making mistakes and errors, although they are part of building your leadership skills, definitely. But I just feel I have a lot to give in that area. Yeah, because I've thought about it for a long time, and, yeah, and as I've done a, master's in business coaching, so it really helped me understand how organizations work as well, which again
Yeah,
is what in nurses school, is it? How to manage a large organization and how to navigate that. Yeah.
exactly. And having that business knowledge alongside the nursing knowledge, you can really help these young managers to navigate this whole new world because until you become a manager, you don't know about KPIs and
No,
all these kind of
you wouldn't
things
even
that suddenly are
know.
thrust onto you.
Wouldn't know what a KPI was. Yeah, and I think too, I guess, through some situation that's happened to me as an after hours manager, I just realized that, I had to really grow from within to be a good leader to start with. And then once I understood myself, I could lead others. And it's even just the simple things of knowing what people's needs are. Tony Robbins' 6 core needs. As soon as I understood them and understood how that affected me, well, then I could see it in others. When they didn't feel valued, when they weren't connecting. Like, one of the big things I've seen in leadership is uh, people really having favorites. I don't know if you've seen that with managers, but
Mm,
favoritism really up the team. You can't have favorites
no,
because people don't feel valued. And then, of course, the num may change your roster, which has happened to me in the past, because they're favoring their people to be around when they're on, and it causes a lot of conflict and a lot of resistance and a lot of resentment.
I just find that kind of behavior really it undermines integrity, it undermines the culture of the team. It's
Oh,
really
yeah.
unhealthy behavior.
It's very unhealthy, but I can tell you I've seen it so much. I mean, but they're obviously not aware of it because they keep doing it. But also they're in a powerful position. They're the num. right? And you don't wanna
Yeah.
speak up because you don't want them to change your roster, because they do, they have the power to do that, you know? And you're just trying to live your life, and you've got a young family. Most nurses have got a young family, and, you know, that's hard if your roster's changed all the time
Yeah. And
or
I
don't
going
feel
back to the numbs, I didn't
mm,
realize until I was in that position myself, just the
yeah,
pressure that you're in, because you're getting the pressure to lead your team and look after them, but you're also getting pressure from the top, from your manager and their manager, and all the
absolutely.
expectations on the business side. So, what you bring to your clients is incredible because you understand both sides of the sandwich that you're stuck in the middle of.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah, and you've gotta find that inner strength, that, as we've talked about a lot, looking after yourself, but also getting to understand what your strengths are, and that's a lot of what I do with my clients to start with, is what are your core strengths? Because once you
Mhm.
know that clarity, and even, clients have said that to me recently, now I know why I'm making that decision, Michelle, because I understand what my strengths are and what's leading me there. And now I know what I need for my next role or my next career choice because I know what's going to make me feel happy in that position because I'm using my strengths. And not only that, the core needs, you want to feel valued in your role. You want to feel connected. You want to feel stable and safe. And safety is such a huge thing. And I know that recently I've talked to you about getting a lot of extra feedback about my teachings clinically, with students. And I thought, what's going on here? I'm thinking I'm getting all this amazing feedback. Not that I haven't got feedback good in the past, but it went to another level. And I think it's because, well, I know it's because I make them feel safe. They can ask me anything. They know that I'm going to tell them and give them feedback honestly, but kindly. And it's really the whole thing is how you make someone feel. And you, as the leader, need to make your team feel safe. That's the biggest
Yeah.
thing, isn't it? You know, it
Yeah.
you know, in an organization that's huge, that's pushing you all the time to respond, you need to feel safe with your leader and in your environment.
Yeah, basic human needs. We need to feel seen, heard, and valued.
Absolutely, it's simple, but I don't know, people don't seem to see how powerful it is. I
Mm.
see it with my students, I really do. Yeah.
That's beautiful. So, what kind of leadership style would you describe yourself as having, and what factors influenced the development of that, do you think, Michelle?
Well, I guess over the years, as a teacher, I felt I'm always a leader and I'm leading
Mhm.
and also describing to them what healthcare is about. I'm being honest with them, but I'm also talking to them about how powerful kindness and caring is. And if you show that in your compassion with people, like even students, when you have to tell them that they're not doing the right thing, or with staff as well, to tell them honestly, but always with compassion and kindness. And I've been doing that. And it's not so hard. And even though sometimes they can be upset about your feedback, which is normal, which is, fair enough, I always have a talk to them the next day. How are you feeling about what I've said to you? Let's have a talk about it in a kind way. And I tell you what, the results are just amazing me. There was a girl that I almost had to fail recently, and I sat down with her and I was really clear with her, and I said, "Look, I might have to fail you." She was doing all sorts of things like not turning up, not ringing me, not being there for handover. And I'll tell you what, she stepped up that next day and did not miss a beat. And then I said to her, "Look, you are doing so well." I knew she had problems with the family. I said, "Well, you don't have to tell me what that is. Okay, I know you're struggling, but this is what you have to do. You have to be here at handover to be safe." And she never missed a beat after that. I just, she really stepped up. And then I also commended her for it because she'd put in a huge effort. And it was great. I don't know. I just really feel that treat each other like we're human beings. you know,
Yeah, it
we're all
really is that simple.
it's not that hard. I mean, really. And I guess see what I do as well is I always have a lot of fun with them. I put music on and, they always say, "Look, we there's so much joy, when we're together." You get to know a group of people very quickly if you're with them for 2 to 4 weeks, but then you're with your staff on a ward every day. So
Yeah.
celebrate, you know, have fun with them. It's so
What's some simple ways you would suggest to do that on a unit then?
Well, I guess I think little things are always good, a couple of minutes. I actually always carry a ball in my bag, and then I always sort of say, "Okay, I'm gonna throw the ball at you, and I'd like you to say something about someone in the room, something you appreciate about them. Make it a fun thing. It only takes a couple of minutes." Or you could even, like you suggest, have a mindful moment,
Mm.
especially when someone's passed away or there's been, an arrest or something. What's something that happened today that you can take away?
Yeah.
Those micro moments are so important to get together as a team because we used to all have handover together. Now we might have a toolbox meeting quickly, but I can see people at the end of the shift and go, if you don't have those moments, it's like I'll say to someone, "I didn't even know you were here today." It's changed so much, Elena, that
Mm.
I don't feel like we're a team anymore, you know, unless you really make the effort to have that toolbox meeting. But also just, I don't know, just make it more human, you know.
I'm
How's
gonna
everyone
stop
going? What's
I'm gonna interrupt because obviously I'm theatre based, so theatre is very different to the ward, and I haven't worked on the
oh,
ward for
yeah.
over 20 years. And what do you mean you don't have a handover anymore as a team? Is that stop?
Well, mainly they come on and it's written on the board who your patients are. And you go to the nurse who has those patients and you hand over most of the time. So you
Oh,
don't
wow.
even have a meeting together unless that particular ward, like there'll be the oncology unit that they always go into the tea room and have just a quick handover, just like how many
Mm.
admissions, how many discharges, who's sick, but they don't hand over everyone like they used to. So a lot of the time you
Gosh.
can go onto a shift and just go to the person you're getting the patient handover from, and you just keep going with your job, and you go around and see the patients again, and you might not say hello to a lot of the nurses that are on that day until you get into bump into them in the clinical room or say, "Can you check a drug with me?" Going, "Oh, hi, you're here today." It's it's so dehumanizing, really,
That's
and
very isolating.
it's very isolating. It's like you're working on your own. That's how I feel sometimes, but then I am a casual and that's you even feel less valued because then only the people who know each other will chat. You know what I mean? You're not even sort of introduced.
Yeah.
"Oh, hi, how you going?" "Oh, Michelle's our casual today," or "Such and such is our agency nurse today." Yeah, it is quite isolating, and yet you're in a team.
Yeah, I didn't appreciate that's what was happening on the wards because obviously I've been in theatre for over 20 years and we're very much a team in there.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, look, theatres is a very different place. I
mhm.
absolutely and look, in some areas, in some hospitals, it may be different, and it really depends on what ward you're on. I work in a lot of different areas. I can work
Yeah.
anywhere for intensive care. I don't like working there. It's way too I'm not really, often they'll say to me, "I was just a ward patient, Michelle." Yet they're very complicated even though we're awake, you know?
Mm.
But, yeah, it's very different everywhere you go. And public would is I work in private, but public are probably different as again. Yeah, but it has changed a lot, and look, I've been around for a long time, so some of the things aren't really great that have changed. That connection with each other. Yeah. Oh, look, it's not the same. It definitely isn't.
Wow.
And the thing is too that often you can't get someone to help you, you know? It's
Really?
hard to get
That
someone to check a drug, but if you ask someone, "Can you have help with a wash?" Well, you're not gonna both do it together like you used to. It's like you're gonna do as much as a wash as you can, and then you'll get your colleague to just come in and do the roll in the back, and then off they go while you do the sheets and everything. It's not like that, like you
oh
used to
god.
do it, and I had a relative once. I had this lady who was a nurse, ex-nurse, and she was end stage, and this other girl was, visiting her, and she was a nurse, and she said, "Oh, do you want me to help do the wash?" I said, "Oh, that'd be lovely. I'm sure she'd love that." It was like the old days where we used to
Mhm.
wash each other wash the patient together. It was so nice. That's gone.
Wow. You're,
It's really hard.
enlightening me. I didn't realize it wasn't like that anymore.
Well, it's not the fault of the nurse. It's very busy now, Elena. It's a
Mm.
lot busier than it ever used to be. And your feet, even when I work on the orthopedic ward, your feet don't hardly touch the ground, you know?
Mm.
I don't go to lunch. I
That
go to morning tea, and I do not go to lunch there because I know I won't get off on time if I do.
oh, that's
It's
not
so
good.
busy.
My
Mhm.
very first job when I graduated was orthopedic trauma unit. And that's the last time I worked in a ward,
Great.
and that was
Oh,
2001. I worked there for 6 months, and then I went to theatre, and I've never looked back.
yeah. Oh, well, theatre is a very close-knit group because you are close, you see. You're in
Yeah.
each other's faces, really, you are, and you've gotta really get along and talk to each other. But I'm sure it has its advantages, and you're much closer to the medical team as well.
Yeah, I think that yeah, there is a real difference there with
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes. See, I've worked in AD for years and 10 years of my career, and we were much closer to the medical team, and it was good. It was just
Mm.
great, you know?
Mm. Yeah, and I think when you have that kind of relationship with the medical team and the allied health, you do get that sense of what we were talking about earlier. You feel more seen and heard and valued and like you're part of the team.
Absolutely. Look, I can be in a room with a patient and a doctor come in, and it's like I'm not there
Mm, that's
unless I
sad.
speak unless I speak to him. And usually I do because I can't read their notes because they can't write properly still. And I say, "Oh, just let me know if there's any changes." But if I hadn't have approached that doctor, he wouldn't have said hello to me. It's like you are not visible. That's happened a lot.
Oh
I'll talk to the
gosh.
nursing charge, but they don't always there'd be some doctors you can say hello to and, that but they're in their own little world.
So your ebook is called From Self-Doubt to Confident Leader. What are
Yes.
some of the most common confidence challenges you see nurse leaders facing, and how do you help them to overcome them?
Okay. So I have spoken to a lot of associate numbs because I was working out whether what they actually needed. And they find it hard to give feedback because they're not sure how to navigate that conversation. Because, of course, a lot of people, when you give feedback, they can get angry, or a lot of the time they're just defensive. So they don't have the skills to have that conversation, so they often don't go there. Of
Mm,
course, sometimes they have to do different conversations with family, which they seem to navigate well. But having a conversation with a colleague, especially when you've only worked on that ward for a little while and you're a young nurse, inexperienced nurse, you haven't really navigated the skills of how to talk to your colleagues and give them feedback that goes off well, right? So that's one thing they really struggle with. Another thing is imposter syndrome. They actually don't feel ready, but they don't want to show they're not ready because they're in charge, right? They've got to pretend that they know what they're doing. And some of them have described it as calm on the outside and paddling their feet under the water, like, crazy, just to try and work out what's going on.
Hmm.
And I think worrying about errors sometimes can keep them up at night because they're hoping that they've done everything. And some of the girls I've spoken to have said, "Oh, I think about it at night when I go home, and I'm not sure that everything was done. And sometimes I'm worried if something goes wrong and I didn't know about it. So that's something that they also worry about, I think."
What is your advice to them about these challenges?
Well, obviously, my program teaches them how to speak to someone with a very short little sort of, you can learn a skill, just a very quick 2-minute skill of how to talk to someone in any situation.
Hmm.
Also, you have to work on being calm. So you have to do it when you are not angry. So there's a skill with that, which I can teach them and they can practice with me. And then, of course, the imposter syndrome is when we look at their strengths and we look at what they've done in the past can build on their confidence. And I've found even just talking to someone outside of the organization about what they're worried about actually helps their confidence.
It's that being seen, heard, and valued again. We keep going back
Absolutely
to it.
that. It is absolutely that. And the other thing is they don't feel safe in the organization to do that or to speak
Yeah.
up. And that's really sad, isn't it? Because that's what makes a difference in our organizations.
And there's all these new laws now around psychological safety. So it's a real kind of elephant in the room because we
Oh,
need
yeah,
to be creating these cultures where people do feel safe to speak up. But the reality is, like you're saying, and I've had the same experience with clients too, they don't feel safe. And like I've had clients come to me and they feel so much better just after talking to me about it.
absolutely. Because they're debriefing, they're getting it off their chest. And it's
And it's
not,
another nurse who's listening to them, so they know that you understand what it's like to be a nurse.
yeah, we get them.
Yeah.
We know the system. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
And that imposter syndrome, I think a
yeah.
lot of nurses struggle with that. I know I did for years and years.
Yeah,
I don't I'm gonna go out on a limb here, and I think our training sets us up to have that imposter syndrome.
absolutely. Yeah. And also, we're taught therapeutic communication, right? We've got to get close to people, that we've got to be empathetic and we've got to think about them. It sets us up for burnout because there's times when we can't do that all the time. And,
Mm,
they're ringing you on the phone or they're texting me all the time, "Can you work? Can you work?" And it's like, I've got used to now saying, "No, I can't." But it took me years to be able to go, well, it's not my job to fill that space. I've got to look after myself. But that took many years to
yeah, I
know
think it doesn't.
that, for myself.
As young nurses, you also feel like you need to almost earn your stripes. Well, back in the day when I
Prove
qualified,
myself.
we did have bloody stripes on our shoulders.
Yeah, exactly. I had a
True.
little hat with stripes on it. And it's true. Yeah, it does. They do set us up to fail in many ways. Yeah, and that you should be able to cope. And we do cope. Like COVID, we coped beautifully. We
Mm.
changed. procedures and policies to accommodate. And we work so hard, but we've always stepped up. I mean, through COVID, it was a little bit too much stepping up, but we've
Yeah.
always stepped up for when we've needed to, and yeah, it just is a lack of value,
Do you
I
think
feel.
there's an over-reliance on the goodwill of the staff and that goodwill is
Oh,
running out?
it's run out a long time ago, Elaine, and that's why a lot of people just leave. And the other
Mm.
thing is too, there's so many more opportunities. When I did nursing, there was nursing, teaching, or you could be a secretary.
Yeah.
Now you've got a bachelor degree, you can go back and do a master's in something totally different. You don't have to work the shift work. You don't have to put up with the bullshit, unless you really love nursing, which look, I've had students, as I was saying to you, ENs and converting, and they are amazing nurses. And to have them
Mm.
in our system is incredible. But they don't have to be there anymore. There's so many opportunities.
Yeah, there are, and I think that's the difference. I mean, I think you're like me and you're hospital trained, so
Yeah.
we kind of were stuck. Where
Yeah, well, we felt we were stuck. Yeah, but we were in many
Yeah.
ways. There wasn't a lot, and look, when your kids are young, the flexibility of shift work and stuff is fantastic. There's no doubt about it. You can work part-time. A lot of my colleagues work nights. I don't know how they did it, but they work nights over weekends and stuff. And, it's a good salary to bring in as a second salary,
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's yeah.
Yeah, and I've navigated single mom life, as a
Yeah, that
nurse,
must
and
have been hard.
that's
Yeah,
kinda why I stayed in theatre as well, because it's obviously more,
normal hours.
childcare friendly hours, so I mean, I say, and I think I shared it recently on another episode, I've been a nurse. I qualified 2000. I've never worked night shifts. I've never worked Christmas.
Really?
Yeah.
You lucky girl. Oh, dear.
Yeah, I've done 1 New Year, and that was the
Mm,
year I'd just graduated and I was in the, trauma unit.
yeah.
But yeah, since then, yeah, I've never worked nights because I had to do nights. I remember doing a prac, as a student, and I spent a month in the stroke unit doing night shift, and it was horrendous. I couldn't sleep during the day, and I
Oh,
was like,
no.
I'm never
Yeah.
working nights." And yeah,
I could only sleep 4 hours, and so it was
yeah,
always terrible for me,
I'm the
but,
same,
it's
and
for a long time,
if
which
I
is
don't
good.
get sleep, I'm not a nice person.
Mm,
I'll openly admit that, so
but also, there's a lot of research out now how working shifts ages you.
Mm.
So, you
Definitely,
know
it messes with your circadian rhythm. I have, clients as well who come to me and, like, they work in really high acuity settings like intensive care, and they'll do, like, 2 days, 2 nights, and then 3 days off, then they're back and do it again, and I'm like, "Oh my god, like, how are they
uh,
doing this?"
yeah. Well, it must be affecting their health. It has to affect their long-term health.
They all burn out very quickly because
Yeah.
it's just not
Yeah,
natural or healthy.
no, and the stress upon them in those areas, even in the
Yeah.
wards now, the stress upon us because I never used to see someone who was confused. You are so lucky now that you don't have someone in your 4 patients that aren't confused unless you're on a very young surgical ward. They are everywhere and it is increasing and you're worried. You're on a surgical ward, you're worried about someone falling, and yet you're trying to do OBS and give IV antibiotics, and then you're listening for that person that they're gonna get out of the bed or, want something. It's
Mm.
really stressful.
Well, this is the aging population they told us about was coming when we were doing our training, it's here, it's happening.
Well, it's here. Yeah, yeah, the average age is 80, or it must be,
Yeah.
most hospitals.
Mhm.
Yeah, and they're
So
sick because of a lot of morbidities.
yeah, yeah, there's so many. And healthcare's constantly evolving, so what advice do you have for nurse leaders who are navigating these big changes, especially since COVID or throughout COVID as well, without burning out themselves?
Mhm. Well, my advice is it gets down to your energy.
Mm.
You have to cut back on what you're doing because energy is everything. And when I recently gave a talk in Brisbane to primary healthcare nurses, and I was developing this talk about self care for nurses. The biggest thing is boundaries, boundary setting, compassion for yourself, knowing your values. And I love the drama triangle. I spoke to you about it when I first did our first podcast. It's keeping away from drama and gossip because it's draining, and it's draining your energy because these people want your attention, the victims and the persecutors and all the rest of it. Playing favorites is not healthy, as we've talked about, and looking after your health. I mean, it gets back to the basics: food, exercise, sleep. They really are the benchmarks of everything. And there's so much information out there now that we shouldn't not know about it. But we've got to remind ourselves to get away from the takeaway, to get away the screens, and just get back to what we used to do. 3 meals a day, no snacks in between, lots of water, getting out in the fresh air. And the most important thing about longevity and happiness is good relationships. And you don't have good relationships if you don't spend time with people. And that is the
Yeah.
most important thing. If you think about what's really given you a lot of satisfaction in your life, I know it's my daughters and my friends. I'm lucky I've got a great partner now anyway. But really, it's about the relationships you have, the fun you have with your friends and your colleagues that you used to have with your colleagues at work. I have a lot of fun with my students. And it just yeah, it's basic stuff, but if you keep getting into drama and you keep getting in and the best thought I ever had was halfway through my training, I decided not to worry about management and what they thought I should or shouldn't do, and I started focusing just on the patient. And I do that every day I go work clinical, even now. I'm just going to focus on being the best nurse, leader I can be today, and everything works out. The patients are lovely. I had this lady say, one of my patients, actually, I worked the other day, and a girl came up to me and she said, "Your patient said to me, she's so sad you're leaving today because you were so lovely to her." And
Oh.
Elaine, all I did was give her a little bit of TLC. I gave her some hot blankets when she was sitting out of bed. I made sure that, I helped her when she got in and out of bed because she'd had a hip replacement at the age of 82.
Mm.
She was so thankful just because I was a bit kind to her. But that reward that you get from just being you with your patient is everything. It makes it all worthwhile. Stop worrying about all the other stuff, the management and all the rest of it. You cannot change that. It's about the locus of control. What can you control? And the only thing you control is you and how you respond.
Beautifully put.
Mm.
And yeah, I think going back to your little hip replacement patient, bless her. And that's the kind of things that I used to do when I was a ward nurse.
Yeah.
Like I said, I worked in orthopedics. And
Mm.
on a Saturday, when it was a bit quieter, I would
Yeah.
go and get basins of hot soapy water and let them soak their feet and stuff in them just to give them a bit of
That's
that
right.
TLC. And they all loved it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just feel like
Yeah.
that's missing now. People just don't do it
We
anymore.
don't have boil. No, they use those, washing things. The sort of I just always get the water out. But anyway, it is just being kind and being gentle with people and listening. Listening is valuing the patient. They feel heard and understood. The same thing applies to the patients. They need to feel valued, heard and understood.
Most
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah,
And
so
that I love what you said about the drama triangle there. I'm gonna go back to that because that's huge, and
I
it's
love
such
it.
a simple thing to follow, and I'll put the link to the previous podcast episode in the show notes so people can go back and listen
Yeah.
more about it. We don't have to unpack it now, but just
No,
staying away from that gossip, that drama, that
yeah.
mean girl stuff that
It's
happens.
the
Just
mean girl stuff, yes,
mhm,
and the thing is you are never at your best when you're in the mean girl stuff and you're in drama, and we all fall back into there occasionally when we're overloaded and burnt out. But the big thing I learned when I was coaching a team was the winner's triangle. And getting
mhm,
over into the winner's triangle means that it's really just simple. What's some solutions I can take on board to change what's happening today? What's
yeah,
something I can do that's different? And then, you know, who wouldn't rather be in the winner's triangle than the drama? Because the drama triangle swallows you up and spits you out.
yeah, it does.
Mm.
And as well, I was listening to you talk, and I always say to people, remember to respond, don't react.
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
think it's about taking that breath and thinking before you react to someone or communicate with someone, and
Yeah.
actually really contemplating your words and what you're going to say, because words carry a lot of weight and they can be quite harmful and detrimental at times if
Yeah.
they're not used wisely.
And it's okay to say, "Can you give me a couple of minutes? Let's have
Yeah.
a chat for a minute," to get that pause, because the
Hmm.
pause is your power. You don't have
Definitely.
to respond straight away. Just give me a couple of minutes or let's have a chat after lunch or whatever. Because if you respond when you're angry, it never works.
No, never.
Mm.
Never. It just fuels the fire even more.
It does. Yeah. So, anyway,
Now, you've talked about the importance of leading yourself first to lead others well. Can
yeah.
you share a practical tool or strategy from your work that helps leaders build trust and create a positive culture on their ward?
I guess, it's just getting to know people,
Mm,
you know? I've seen a lot of managers who don't really know their staff, and it's just chatting to them, talking to them in a reasonable way, you know? It just can go a long way, and I think too supporting them when they really need you to come out onto the ward and to notice when they need that bit of extra help or maybe a staff member to come in and help them. It doesn't have to be you. But just noticing what's going on and giving them that support is really important. Back to that, being valued and acting on that, you know?
that's exactly what I was going to say. It's that seen and heard and valued again. Yeah.
I think that should be the
And I think
title.
it's also important. Wh When I was leading a team, I always thought if someone came and shared something with me or spoke to me about something, I would always make sure to check back in about it with them
Yeah.
in the next kind of 48 hours, just so that they knew that I was remembering.
Yeah, you need to do that. Not a lot of people do it. Actually,
Mm,
rarely do people do it, but I've learned it as a coach and a teacher. It's really important to have that conversation because the thing is that people go home and they think about it. And then they think, "Oh, I should have said this and I should have said that. And why didn't I remember that?" But because they've been put on the spot, they don't remember straight away how to respond. So they respond, you know, defensively. So, but
mhm,
when it all settles and they've had time to think about it, is the time to have another chat. And then they can say, "Oh, look, in that situation, this, I remember now this happened." And it doesn't have to change anything. They're still in that situation of it happened and it was wrong or, there was a mistake. But at least again, they've been heard because they
yeah.
don't feel heard at the time. They just feel bombarded that you've told them something they don't really wanna know because they wanna protect their self-esteem, and that's what we try always to do. It's just a knee-jerk reaction, we wanna protect ourselves. when
Yeah.
someone said something that's we don't really wanna hear or we don't really expect, Sometimes you can hear things and you go, "I didn't know that," you know?
Mm.
So
Yeah.
having that is very powerful, and again, that gets you much closer to your staff, if you're willing to take the time to have a talk to them again, you know?
How do you feel about leaders showing their own vulnerabilities to their team?
Well, there's a lot of research around that, and the research says that if you show your vulnerability to your team, it allows them to do the same, to feel that they are safe enough to do that.
Yeah.
And I've seen it happen. I've seen it because, look, the leader isn't perfect. We know that, but if they don't show it, you know, we go, well, they're not that perfect. We say it, don't we, about them? They're not that perfect if they're saying that about me. So owning up to being imperfect is a good thing, I find. Yeah,
I think it's a good leadership trait as well. Yeah, most
I think.
definitely.
Yeah, yeah.
And self-compassion, but I'm not gonna,
Mm.
go down that rabbit hole just now. But yeah, um,
Uh,
many nurses are really good at caring for others, but they forget that self-compassion for themselves and that self-care.
mm.
How do you think nurses can make space for when they're feeling stretched thin? Like, what can they do to look after themselves?
Well, we go back to all that basic stuff of, caring for their diet, exercise, and sleep is a really good framework. But we know in reality that isn't always enough. So that when they do get stressed, they need to go, okay, I need some time out. It may not be appropriate at that time when they're feeling stressed, of course, or they could go into the toilet and just have a quick couple of breaths, which does
Mhm.
help. Or they can say, I just need a few minutes, to get myself back again, or can I have a quick tea break or something?
Yeah.
Yourself is really important, but then just caring for yourself later, you know, is usually what happens. But, it's important for you to take that time. But if
So
you
it's
can in the fly, well, that's great if you've got those skills set. Yeah.
so it's about being able to monitor yourself and how you're
Yeah.
feeling in the moment.
That's right. It's that, what do they call it now? There's a buzzword about it, de-stressing your nervous system. Nervous
Mm.
system, whatever it's called.
Reset, yeah.
Yeah, sort of resetting your nervous system, and the only way you can do that, as you know, is activate the parasympathetic nervous system, and if you have the deep breathing, the vagus nerve goes under your stomach, so if you have the really deep tummy breathing, it actually sets that up. It does start to relax you. If you can do a couple of minutes meditation or, meditation practice regularly actually thickens your frontal cortex and it actually decreases your aging as well. But you've got to do that regularly and you've got to be pretty devoted to that, at least 5 minutes a day. So
Yeah, but
meditate.
even just the breathing exercises, because the minute we start taking those
Oh,
deep breaths, it lets our nervous system know that we're not in any danger. Because
yeah, yeah.
by regulating our breathing, it's sending chemicals back up to the hypothalamus to calm
Well,
down the amygdala. I'm doing this neuroscience in uni this
yeah,
semester, so
that's fine.
it's
Well,
it's front of mind.
when your grandmother, I don't know with your grandmother, you say count to 10.
Mm,
Well, it takes 8 seconds for those neurotransmitters to calm down when you're feeling stressed, when you have sort of an alert. So
yeah.
that seconds is for those transmitters to go back to where they're supposed to be. So it does work just to have a couple of breaths, and activate your parasympathetic. And then
Yeah.
after, make sure when you go home, you have a hot bath or you go for a walk in the bush and hug hug your children or your partner. Dance. I love to dance.
Yeah, dance is a great way of releasing tension. We hold
I had
so much of our
Yeah.
hips
Oh,
moving it.
yeah. do. Yeah, it's great. Yeah. Mm.
Okay, I'm gonna start wrapping things up, but
Yeah, we've had a long chat today, which
yeah.
yeah.
But I know there's something you want to share from your book with the
Yeah, I do.
listeners
Just a little
for
comment at the end of my book. And of
Mhm.
course, put the link, will you, so they can access the ebook for
Most
me?
definitely.
Okay. The leadership you want is already within you. You don't need to be louder or tougher or someone else. You just need to keep choosing alignment over approval, responsibility over reactivity, and legacy over burnout. Your growth as a leader is the gateway to your team's growth. Your steadiness becomes their safety. Your courage becomes the culture.
That's beautiful, and what an awesome way to end this episode. Thank you so much, Michelle. It's been a pleasure.
It's been lovely, Elaina. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Happy Nurse podcast. If you've enjoyed today's content and would like to join the Happy Nurse community, head over to Facebook and check out the Happy Nurse AU Facebook page and request to join the Happy Nurse community. Also, check out happynurse.com.au for access to free downloads and subscription to my blog. See you soon, and in the meantime, remember to always offer yourself the same compassion that you so freely give to others.